What is your kind of personal history with it? Like, do you remember what your first kind of memory of the Power Rangers was?
Yeah, I mean, I was 12 or something in South Africa, and it came on TV like probably right after Turtles. Turtles ended. We had a channel called Kids Television, and all of these things would screen, and you would come home after school, and you would get a certain amount of time that your parents would let you watch until you had to start doing your homework, and it was one of the shows that came on, and like everywhere else in the world, it became sort of a phenomenon. And I kind of grew up a little bit on the first season of it, and some seasons after that, and then like with those things, you start to outgrow it, but it's a part of your childhood.
So when you knew that this was going to, the potential of a film was going to be made, what were your kind of intentions? Like, what kind of things did you want to bring into this story that was going to appease the kind of fanboy in you?
To me, what I saw as a kernel in the very first draft of the script that I read was, here's a superhero movie that actually the superhero part is a perfect metaphor for the character story. What I mean by that is, to me, the movie was always going to be about a coming-of-age journey, about kids who had to shed their own teenage armor to finally fit into the skins they belong in. And those skins are symbolized by them getting their Power Ranger suits. And so I thought that if you could bring those two things together, that there was something really exciting about that, because the high concept part of the movie framed a very personal part of a character journey, and I don't think you often see that in movies like this. It's often you have some big high concept and you're trying to kind of put really sort of cool, nuanced, complex characters into it, but the two things may not have such a kind of a synergy. And so to me as a fan, I always wanted to make the most sort of compelling coming-of-age story, because I felt like I grew up on the show and wanted to make the movie about growing up. And everything I wanted to do was to relate back to what I thought the show was for me, which was Mighty Morphing Power Rangers. It's a metamorphosis. So everything I wanted to bring to the movie was about transformation.
And you waited. I mean, it's quite ballsy to like almost an hour into it that we finally even see. So
Right.
was there any pushback at that point where it's just like, wait a minute, shouldn't they come in 10 minutes into this,
Oh, totally. Yes, we had a lot of discussion about it, a lot of debate about it. Ultimately, what was amazing is that everybody, that was my pitch from the beginning. My pitch from the beginning was that they had to earn this thing. And it is a very bold choice. And I think it's going to polarize audiences too. But to me, it's the thing that makes the movie have a beating heart and a substance. And I think if you can really earn the moment that they become Power Rangers, that is an enormous victory for a movie. So it's a bold choice, and I like that.
Then to find 5 actors who can then portray these variations of how they need to earn it. Was it difficult for you to find these 5, or what? At what point were there variations where you had to try different actors, and then finally this was the 5 that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was very difficult. We auditioned probably thousands of kids from all around the world, got tapes in from all around the world, and it took us a really long time to find them. And we did have different people that were front runners all throughout the casting process, and it was a hard combination to find. They had to be right for the characters, they had to be right together as chemistry, and they had to have the spirit of what those original characters were in the show in 1993. That's a lot to have in one person, and then find 5 of them that could do that together. In fact, the casting process, I was just telling some of the other journalists, the casting process took so long that we had to keep asking Weta Workshop, who were building the suits, to give us more time, because we had to cast 18 weeks before the suits would be camera ready. And we kept just pushing the deadline and pushing the deadline because we didn't have the 5.
What was it like when you had the 5 in the same room, maybe to the read-through or whatever? What was it like?
It was great. It was very exciting. I mean, it was a very charged moment. They came to the production office in Vancouver. It was the first time they had all been together. I'd met them all individually. And they were, you could feel the energy. There was a lot of excitement. There were a lot of nerves. They're young. They're relatively new at this, at a movie of the scale. I am too. and you could feel the promise of what it could be, and I think the terror of you know what we were embarking on, and the expectations of hopefully making this a success.
To be able to, the actions seem really organic, and so what was the kind of choice on your end to kind of make sure that that felt like as if a normal person was now thrown into this kind of extraordinary?
It was very important to me that the movie felt organic and grounded and almost like elemental. I felt like the movie, the elemental part of the movie, because the movie is sort of about a rebirth, something about the elements was important, that it felt earthly and sort of tactile. And that's why the wall they find the coins in, and the quarry and the grit and the stones, there's something that we actually drew on the periodic table of the elements to figure out what that would feel and look like. And in contrast to that, the water is very important as sort of kind of this way in which they are reborn. So those two things were always sort of visually something that I knew needed to be in the movie in sort of a very tactile way. And then just in a general sense, to make the movie feel improvised almost, sort of off the cuff, that the actors were moving in a fluid way, that the camera was moving in a fluid way, that you never ever felt that you were in a movie where people had to hit marks and everything was too staged or choreographed. And it's something, a style that my cinematographer and I are very proud of, and something that even from Project Almanac we've been trying to develop, which is kind of look at the way media is consumed in the world today, and look at YouTube, and look at, Vine is no longer, but sort of look at Vine and look at the way in Instagram, and look at the way we create our own images just as people and consume those images. And what would it look like for a movie to feel like that? And that's what we try to bring to it.
Was it interesting to have an international cast too? Like, was that a very conscious choice to...
It was serendipitous, honestly. We were just looking for the best 5 kids. I think it's fantastic that they are from all around the world because it's such an international brand.
Okay, Nerd Boy, seeing your 5 in the suits for the first time, what was that like for you? To kind of like, I mean, at some point you're like, and what noise did you make? I mean,
Well, to me, for me, I saw it in iterations. So because we were designing the suit, so we had all the concept art, and then I would see pieces of the armor. So with pieces of the armor on my desk in my office, and that was very exciting to see the resin and the Under Armour and everything. And then I remember walking in and seeing Dacre wearing the suit for the first time, and just sort of how impressive it looked, and just how next generation I thought it looked, and it was fantastic. It was a year in the making, so it was very relieving. Oh, okay, the idea works.
Then to have other things unfold, like your Zords and then your Megazord, to see that kind of over the period of time that was that fun for you? And can you play favorites? Is there certain things that you were like?
It's really fun. It's really exciting when you see sort of a visual effect that is near to the end. And you go, okay, oh my God, that moment works. Like, I now, having seen that moment play a million times in all its different iterations, now I actually felt something for the moment. That is a very exciting part of the process. The process leading up to that moment is difficult and stressful and just very painful and hard.
Only because I love powerful women, and so when I see Elizabeth Banks portray who she plays, and it's fabulous, even though she's evil. What was it like to work with her and see her kind of develop this persona, which is just, you should do a spin-off film of her. I mean, honestly, it's amazing.
I'm glad you say that and you liked it. I love Rita. I'm very proud of what we did with her because I think it's very risky. I think often villains, they're just terrifying and they're terrible, and yes, they can be very interesting. I think you expose yourself to criticism when you try and bring a kind of a humor and an absurdity, and dare I say a silliness, into that And I think Tim Burton did it so well back in the day, and that always had a real impression on me. And I wanted to bring something like that because I don't think you see it that much anymore. And Elizabeth was so excited to do it, and we both said we wanted her to chew the scenery, and we wanted her to be kind of this delicious villain and unusual and outlandish. And that will both make it much more entertaining and much scarier. That's a very small bullseye to hit. And we just talked about it, and we said we're going to try a bunch of stuff, and nothing is too crazy, and I'm just going to keep rolling the cameras, and we did. And the first scene we shot was in the jewelry store, and the moment she took the necklace off of the woman and put it in her mouth, that was totally improvised on the spot, and I knew right then and there that we were going to get Rita right.
There are certain things for fans that I think they're hoping to see in a film like this, and you do give it to them. And so I'm just wondering, what was it like for you to kind of maybe throw in the theme song and and then have the green kind of jacket to hint at these things that are kind of, I think, really gifts for people who are. What were your decisions on choosing these things?
Well, look, we worked very closely with Saban. Right, we worked with Haim, we worked with his team, we worked with Brian Casantini, and they were always helping make sure that we were staying true to things that were going to be important to the fans. And I knew to a degree because I'd grown up on it, but I'm a lapsed fan. I'm someone who hadn't watched the show in many, many years. And you don't realize the power of those choices until you see it play in front of an audience. And we've been lucky enough to see it in front of preview audiences, and those moments are overwhelming. And you just realize how important they are, and it's extremely gratifying that the choices pay off like that.
I'm going to have to ask you to you have to choose a favorite. Who, if you were a Power Ranger, which color would you like to be, and why?
That's interesting because everyone asks me who's my favorite Power Ranger, but this is sort of a different question. Like if I were the
because
Power
you grew
Ranger,
up, and obviously this
Right.
probably came through your head at some point.
Well, when I was a kid, I always liked the Red Ranger because he was super into karate, and I was like a kid, and I did karate, so that was very cool. I guess I'd either be the Red or the Black Ranger right now, only because I think it would be cool to be in the T-Rex Zord or the Mastodon Zord.
Perfect.